Hello everyone, it's Hannah and welcome back to a new video. So today I'm going to be doing a video kind of talking about exchange and the whole experience and everything like that, because it was literally one of the most life-changing, best experiences I've had in my life. I learned so much about myself, about traveling, about moving to another country. I gained so much independence, and all at the same time. It was an easy experience. It did not just happen. It required a lot of effort and work and preparation for months beforehand, getting visas, filling out forms, filling out all of these requirements for the university. So I thought I would get into this video because I went on exchange to New York City, which is in the US, which meant already the process is a lot longer because I need to get a visa and it's in a different continent because I'm from the Netherlands. So it was definitely a process. So let's talk about it, and I will kind of talk about exchange and any tips and advice that I have. So right before exchange, when I started off by applying, we can start there. I applied through my university. They offered an exchange program. I'm studying at Amsterdam University College, which is part of the University of Amsterdam, and the VU, which is the Vrije Universiteit. And they allowed us to go on exchange via UvA and VU universities too. So not only AUC universities, AUC partner universities. So I applied at first in my first year of uni, and I applied to basically only Australia. We could put our top 5 choices. We had to write one letter of motivation for all the unis together, so just one letter in total. And then once you're accepted into the exchange, they randomly choose what you get into. It's not based on grades or motivation or anything like that. So I got into the exchange program, but I didn't get into any of my top choices. And at the time I was kind of upset, but I wasn't really too upset because I knew most of my friends were going on exchange later, and I'd rather go on exchange when all my friends are on exchange. So I was like, whatever, it's fine. I can try again next year. But I was a little bit disappointed. But now I realized that me not going on exchange then was literally the best thing I could have experienced in my whole entire life, because I'm telling you guys, this was literally the best experience I've ever had. And I'm literally crying just thinking about it, because for some reason I missed it. I've been missing it so much today. And honestly, since the day I got back. So yeah, I mean, the Netherlands is very nice, but New York is just something else. But yeah, so the next year I applied again, and this time I was like, you know what, I want to go to New York. I don't know why I chose this university, just something, or why I chose New York, but something just kind of pulled me. And because I hadn't gone in last year, I was like, rather than applying for the most well-known unis or the most competitive ones, I'm gonna apply to one competitive one, which was NYU, and the rest of them I'm just gonna apply the ones where the least people apply, so I can still go to New York. And this ended up working well, because I went to CUNY, the City University of New York, and I ended up going to Baruch, which is a very good university, but mostly on the finance side. And I'm doing humanities, I'm doing arts, I'm studying media, so it wasn't really the best fit academically, but I really just wanted the experience of being able to go to New York and experience studying in a different country, and I got that. Wow. I need to leave soon because I have a haircut in 15 minutes, so this video isn't going to be too long, which is probably good. So I got into the exchange around 6 months before I was leaving, or even longer than that. I got into the exchange on January, and I left for New York on August 9th. So the process was very long in between leaving and getting. So that's something that it's important to keep in mind. There's not just nothing that happens in that process. You get into exchange and you book your tickets. No, there's so much that goes in between. So first of all, that was just accepting your offer. Then my university had to send me a letter to say I was accepted. And then the host university, so Baruch, had to send me a letter to say that I was accepted. Then I had to fill in a bunch of information for my uni on a form and a bunch of information for the other uni on a form too. And this was not easy. It was a 20-page form. I think it was like two 20-page forms with literally every single detail. I had to dig deep to find these details, all my evidence of all kinds of vaccinations. I needed to request them. I needed to get certain vaccinations. I needed to show evidence that I had enough money in my bank account or my parents' bank account to be able to afford to go on exchange. Then they wouldn't accept the banks here because there needed to be a stamp. So I had to get that statement like 60 different times. I'm not even kidding. Other people had even more issues. Yeah, it's a very intense process, but don't let that, I guess, stop you. You have to apply for a visa. That can take a few hours because you have to fill out all of these questions. You have to go to your visa interview. And then there's actually preparing for actually going to New York. You need to get your flights. You need to find a place to stay. And this is quite difficult. In New York, it's definitely, you can find a place to stay. But the question is, can you find an affordable place to stay that is not super far from like the uni or Manhattan? So I ended up staying in Brooklyn and I found my housing via Settle Living. Now in hindsight, I live in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And there's a massive housing crisis in the Netherlands, especially Amsterdam. So rent is already super high here. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to get the first place I can, even if it's expensive. Nothing better is going to come along. I mean, in hindsight, I could have definitely just waited a little bit longer and I could have gotten a place for probably under €1,000 via this website. But I got this place and it worked out very well because I got along very well with my roommates. And I met somewhere very special, like in the apartment too. So I would not change it at all, but yeah, definitely, like at least for New York, you can find affordable options. You can go on exchange and it's definitely possible to do, even like even though it's financially quite difficult to go like from somewhere in Europe to the US, especially because a lot of prices are higher, but it's definitely possible. I feel like the biggest barrier is the fact that you need to show that you have enough finances. And obviously not everyone just has a bunch of money sitting in their bank account. So, but you can borrow money from the bank and then just give it back immediately to prove that you have enough money. So that's what some people did. But yeah, it's still a very expensive thing to do, to go to New York, and you can't get a job on exchange in the US at least unless you do it illegally or you get a job at the campus. So I recommend like getting a job beforehand to save up, because you also want to have some money to spend there to maybe go on weekend trips or go to museums and stuff like that, even though there are a lot of free activities, which I also recommend. So I ended up living with roommates. I think the only other option would have been for me to get a studio, which would have probably been more expensive than what I paid for rent, which was already ridiculous. I paid $1,290 per month plus a 4% transaction fee on that every single month. So I ended up paying a lot of money. And when I went to the US, it was in 2024. So like the exchange rate between euros and dollars slowly got worse for euros. Like the dollar got stronger. So it also became more expensive as I was on the exchange, which is also something to bear in mind, that differences in exchange rate can have like a financial consequence. But I wouldn't worry about that too much, but it's just good to be aware of it. And yeah, you don't want to like end up in a really sticky situation. Yeah. So that's like kind of like the housing is a very important aspect. And I found that about, I think 2 weeks before I left to the US. And I booked my flight there for the 9th of August and my return flight for the 4th of August. And oh my God, it was literally the best experience of my whole entire life. Like, I want to do another exchange so badly for my master's. Actually, I have to go to, I have to do an internship. So hopefully I can do an internship somewhere like on exchange, because I just want to go again so badly. Like, the whole experience is so scary, but it's so rewarding. And you really have to build your whole life from scratch. And you know, there's other options to do an exchange which maybe are a little bit more stable, like going to a uni abroad. But this was just so special, and people get worried that you don't make friends. Like in 6 months you can't make close friendships, but I actually found that I ended up being so close with the people I met, just because you end up going on little trips together, but you're also all like diving into this quite intense, difficult experience together. The only thing about exchange is it was very expensive, so I think that's kind of something to bear in mind. But there's also cheaper exchanges. Like New York is a pretty expensive exchange. Going to like Singapore would be expensive. But I don't know, if you're living in the Netherlands and you go on exchange to Berlin or somewhere else in Europe, you're definitely it's all gonna be a little bit cheaper. So that is kind of what I recommend doing. But I also think just like working, like I had one friend and she funded the whole entire exchange by herself, which is crazy because it is quite expensive. So that's really impressive. And she just ended up having like 3 jobs at the end, like in the year before her exchange semester, and she managed to fund the whole thing by herself and not have a job while on exchange, I'm pretty sure. So it is definitely possible. So then let's talk about actually arriving. So obviously I was super afraid. I didn't know what to pack. I had 1 suitcase. I recommend bringing 1 suitcase. Some people brought 2. I think bring 1 and then maybe you'll go shopping there, buy some souvenirs, and you can take back a second one, but don't bring 2. I think you definitely don't need it. And I didn't fill up my suitcase completely because you're gonna end up buying stuff you'll need to, and instead fill up that empty space with old bed sheets, or like an old mattress cover, like things that you will need there on your first night. Like I even brought a pillow with me just because I had the space. So I got on my flight. I flew to Greenland, and then from Greenland to New York City. I recommend taking a direct flight. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be super cheap. I'm gonna just use the cheapest option. I do not recommend using the cheapest option. That is not the smartest idea. So yeah, I don't recommend doing that. Just because like it is really important to prioritize like comfort, I think, in that moment, because you're really flying into something super unknown. And for me, this was like the first time I couldn't just run home to mom and dad for the weekend. No one was coming with me. My mom actually was coming to visit me a week later, but I told her not to fly on the same plane as me because I really wanted to experience like settling in myself, and I guess prove to myself that I could build a life and to just be able to do all of that stuff completely alone, which was a very good idea in my opinion, because I experienced so much just like arriving there, doing everything at the airport. You know, you're getting your passport checked, you're getting your visa checked, you're getting questioned, everything like that. Then I ended up, this is another mistake you should not make. So you should like make sure you're flying to somewhere, an airport that's close to the place you're living, because I actually flew somewhere to upstate New York, because New York is a state, and I was like, oh, New York City and New York are the same thing. They are not. So I ended up flying to upstate New York, but I learned from it. So I took a bus down to New York, like near New York City, Manhattan, near Times Square, and then I took a taxi to, like a cab, to Brooklyn, where I was staying, because I don't know, it was my first time ever in New York. I had a suitcase. I didn't know how the subway worked completely yet, so I just wanted to get there safely. But taxis are so expensive. Like the taxi was around 30 minutes and it cost me $60. Another thing I recommend doing is bring a bunch of cash, just so you have, like, say your credit card doesn't work, because also I needed to get like a credit card and everything because I never had that before the trip. If your credit card doesn't work or something like that, then at least you can pay in dollars. So that was great because I didn't really know how anything worked at the beginning. I was not sure. Like, I literally had never been to New York. I'd been to the US, but like before I was, using a bank card or anything like that. And also I arrived when it was dark, so I think it is possible to take the subway. Just, yeah, bear in mind, you know, like if it's dark, stuff like that. You can also do like a shared ride. But yeah, then I arrived into my apartment. My roommate let me in, and yeah, I kind of like was so excited. I just like made my bed and I went to sleep. It was already like 10 p.m., which meant I'd been up for a long time because of the time difference. New York is 6 hours ahead. Yeah, no, behind. Yeah, New York is 6 hours behind. So I'd been up for 6 hours more than usual, or like even longer than that, because, and like I was on a long flight. So I just went to sleep, and the next day I went and got like groceries and basics. Now, when you first arrive, bear in mind you're gonna need to spend probably a little bit more money than usual to get just basic groceries like oil and salt and pepper. I needed to get a duvet cover, like blankets, like that kind of stuff. You kind of forget that you need that shampoo, conditioner. To be honest, I brought that stuff. Like, I recommend bringing that stuff because it will save you a lot of money and it won't take up that much space. Like, you don't need 20 t-shirts, you need 10, well, 5, you know, you don't need that much stuff. And also going on exchange really taught me like how little you can live off. So that was also very nice. And yeah, then I just went to the uni on like my second day. I arrived way earlier than my uni begun, so I could just explore. New York is a place a lot of people visit, so I ended up like a family that I knew quite well. They were there, so I ended up spending a few days with them just sightseeing. I talked to my roommates a lot, got to know them well, and then my mom came to visit for a week. We did all the sightseeing stuff, and then like the week after that, basically my uni started. And then there were all of these introduction events where you could meet people, so that was great. And also my friend who also was from my uni and went on this exchange, like she was also there at that point. So I did have like people to reach out to, and I was just lucky because I went to such a big city. There were a lot of people that I already knew there, or like someone's cousin was living there, or someone's auntie. So I met up with a lot of people in that way, and I just felt like very at home, and I never felt lonely. I never felt homesick on the whole entire exchange. However, it is a possibility. So definitely bear that in mind. Like, you could have kind of negative feelings towards the exchange, or just like feeling lonely. So yeah, I recommend just going out and doing a lot of activities, spending time with people, so that you can kind of like combat the homesickness. But I think the absolute best way to avoid being homesick is to take wait, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the best way to avoid being homesick is to live with roommates, because I mean, some roommates will just stay in their room, but at least for me, like my roommates became like my best friends, and they were the people I was living with. So I just like met so many cool, interesting people, and it wasn't people from my school, it was people who were already working, people from all different ages who weren't all studying the same thing. So I really felt like I broadened my scope of like my scope generally, because I met a lot of people I would never have just met at university. There's a lot more to talk about exchange and a lot more tips and advice I could give, but I need to go get a haircut, so I am going to end this video here. If you guys want a part 2, then please do let me know, and I will see you guys all soon. I really like doing this video, so I will probably just do part 2 if you don't want it. But yeah, I definitely recommend going on exchange. It was literally the best experience of my whole entire life, and I miss it every single day. So definitely go. Please do it just for me.